Good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us on this exciting day. It is always thrilling to see the Vogue title continue to expand. And today we are welcoming our very newest member and the 27th edition of Vogue Worldwide, growing our presence in Southeast Asia. I know that I speak for all of us when I say, welcome Vogue Singapore. And what a launch it has been. The inaugural issue has 3 stunning and collectible covers, one of them featuring Singaporean model Dia Prabuka, and is centered around the theme Arise, a powerful call to emerge and to stand strong and tall with optimism. And what could be more needed in these challenging and difficult times? Vogue Singapore is not only launching its very first issue today, as they embrace every means to connect with their audience and to elevate local talent in print, in digital, and way beyond, we're also celebrating the rollout of Vogue Studio, a 360-degree digital experience with interconnecting platforms. The title is, of course, led by Norman Tan, whose previous experience as the editor-in-chief of multiple titles across fashion and luxury, as well as his keen eye and sharp sense of creativity and innovation, make him the perfect fit for the role. I have no doubt that Norman will truly excel and fulfill all of our Vogue values. In addition to launching the Vogue Singapore title, I am also thrilled that Norman has created the Vogue Singapore Foundation, a fundraising initiative set up to support the local community of creative talent in Singapore with an annual financial award. I believe that it is Vogue's role within the industry to always support the next generation of designers, and Vogue Singapore will give this talent a platform in this part of the world. So many congratulations to you, Norman, and to your team. I know we are all looking forward to seeing what else you have planned. And personally, I am looking forward to seeing more of your remarkable collection of hats. And today's conversation will look at the role of technology in shaping the future of fashion. I wish all of you a wonderful, wonderful conference, and turning it over to you now, Norman.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It really is an honor to join the Vogue and Condé Nast family. It's been an incredible year for all of us. And although we can't gather to celebrate the launch of Vogue Singapore today, we have Vogue Conversations. So I'm glad that we can unite here virtually. And the conversation today is, how is technology fashioning the future? From runway to retail. And we have 4 fantastic panelists joining us today. So first up, we have Angel Chen. She's a graduate from Central St. Martin's. She interned at Marquesa, Vera Wang, and Alexander Wang in New York before going on to launch her own label. She's been listed on the BOF 500 index since 2017 and was a finalist at the Woolmark Prize in 2018. And you might recognize her from Netflix Next in Fashion in 2019. She joins us now to discuss her recent Shanghai Fashion Week digital experience. Welcome, Angel.
Hi, Norman. Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you. Joining Angel, our second panelist is Kerry Murphy. Kerry is the founder of the Fabricant, which is a digital fashion house that is driving the industry towards a new sector of digital-only clothing. His education is in film, visual effects, and he's worked in advertising for companies like Facebook, Nike, ASICS, and many more for over a decade. He established the Fabricant full-time in 2018, and I look forward to hearing his insights on the future of 3D garment, animation, and creation. Welcome, Kerry.
Cool, thanks for that, Norman. Super happy to be here.
Joining Kerry and Angel, we have Maghan McDowell. She leads the coverage of technology and innovation at Vogue Business and is known for identifying the key drivers of the future of fashion and retail and offers insights on which technologies matter. Before Vogue Business, Maghan reported for publications that included W, Business of Fashion, and was the first tech reporter for WWD. Welcome, Maghan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I love your setup. You look absolutely so professional.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you. And rounding up the panel, we have Maria McClay. Maria joined Google as a head of luxury fashion after nearly a decade at Gucci, where she held senior operational and strategic roles, including GM of Northern Europe and Associate VP of Retail for Europe. She began a career at McKinsey across New York, San Francisco, and Mexico City, and covered the luxury goods and retail sectors in the European consumer retail investment banking team at Lehman Brothers. A fellow of the McKinsey Global Institute, she holds an MBA also from Harvard Business School. She now joins to discuss how technology can be an enabler for change. Welcome, Maria.
Norman, thanks so much for having me here. I'm absolutely delighted to be part of the conversation.
Everyone, thank you so much for your time. I mean, we're dialing in from all parts of the world, and we've just launched Vogue Singapore today, and one of our key cornerstones is how technology and fashion come together. So this is something that's very dear to my heart. But also, right now, we're in the midst of the European fashion circuit, or what is the new version of the European fashion circuit, with Milan Fashion Week kicking off officially today. So I thought, who better to ask about the future of fashion weeks than Angel? You recently did a virtual show at Shanghai Fashion Week, and there was also a live stream. Can you tell us about that experience? Because, you create physical clothes that we touch and feel and wear. How do you translate that experience to an audience online?
Yeah, actually, it's a very new experience to me. So first of all, I'm luckily finished the whole collection right before the pandemic, before the lockdown. And I just have to cancel the Milan Fashion Week because we couldn't travel. And I quickly team up with a really cool CG animation team and also art director, put together a very cool film. Maybe, Norman, if we could show everyone a glance of it so that everyone understand what is it.
Let's show that clip now.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, that was really epic, Angel. How did you create that? So the clothes are real, but you shot it on a green screen.
Yes, the clothes are all real. If the clothes is not real, then we have to speak to Kerry about that, because Kerry created 3D garment, and all this clothes, all the collection, we made it exactly the same as how we did for traditional show. However, we shoot all the model in front of the green screen. And after that, we create a really cool theme, which is the backdrop with 3D modeling and with the rendering technique, so that our whole vision and creativity can be realized in a virtual way. And then we put them together. Also, we did the composing of the music. Plus, we did a live streaming to show everyone the virtual show. And we get the chance to talk to the customer and also talk to all of my friends about how we process this whole show. It was really, really successful. And also, we launched my online store at the same time. So we push everything at the same time. It's kind of a very new experience for all of us.
Mm-hmm. And Angel, because I mean, so many brands in this year, I mean, we talk about digitalization of fashion, and there's all these brands that have 3 to 5 year plans, but you really kind of did all this in 1 month, didn't you? That was a huge learning curve for you.
Yes, it is. I still remember how I was like crazy studying and learning all this virtual world. I remember I was checking all the, how does live streaming work in such a short time, and how to set up an online store in such a short time, and how to work with a CG animation artist. So it's very difficult, but it's very new world to me, because I always wanted to stay open-minded to accept new challenge. So I'm kind of feel like a sponge that absorbing new technology, new information, knowledge. It's really, really mind-blowing and inspiring. Also, actually, I was checking Kerry's work as well. That also inspired me. I hope one day we can work together.
Definitely. With that, Kerry, you know, Angel for this collection, the clothes she had made pre-pandemic, and then she showed it using a green screen, and she did live streaming. But tell us about what you do at the Fabricant, because you actually, instead of using material to craft garments, you use data to craft garments. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the question of like, how do we create tangibility in the digital only space is something that we deal on a daily basis. And I think Angel shows is one of the ones that I'm more excited about, especially during the pandemic, because a lot of people are trying to do this kind of digital version of the catwalk. And the question is, what is the digital catwalk? What is the digital fashion event and shows? You know, so we're constantly trying to figure out, how do we take something that's very emotional? And I think that's kind of the key to fashion as well, you know, translating emotion from the real world into the digital world. And there's a lot of aspects that goes into this: digital materials, it's digital lighting, a lot of those things. So yeah, you want to ask something? I see it.
I know when I spoke to you a while back, I was like, oh, can we do something for Vogue Singapore? And can we get it done in 3 days? And you were like, no, we cannot get it done in 3 days. Because there's a kind of, people think it's digital. You press a button and we get a digital dress, but that's not how it works, right?
Not at the moment, and that's what we're working on, because we want to automate a lot of that process. Of course, the creative process itself, you cannot automate. So that's kind of what takes a long time before you get it into a concept. But when you're using technology, and we use a lot of technology from the visual effects industry, what they're really good at is automating a lot of the stuff, you know. So there's a lot of things being reused, you know, like every Hollywood movie, something needs to explode, you know. So they have all these like great tools for explosions. Whenever you find yourself doing the same thing twice, you can automate that in the digital space. And we take that craftsmanship that, you know, physical fashion is all about. We take the same craftsmanship and we bring it into the digital space. So we talk a lot about stitches, seams, textures, materials, draping, and fit. But we use just different tools for those. And we take a lot of the visual effects tools and bring them into the fashion industry to create the type of visualizations that we do. And that is like, that's how we try to bring that tangibility. And secondly, it's that emotion again, you know. And that's kind of like, there's a lot of challenges, because we need to take the culture of visual effects into fashion, and we need to take the culture of fashion into visual effects. And it's like constant fighting against each other to understand those needs. So I would love to hear your experiences, Angel, of how you kind of came across and how you got through those challenges that you faced in your process.
Yeah, so actually today we just had a meeting with some of my clients. They're asking me to do another virtual show like what I have done before, or maybe we can do a 3D scanning people, virtual idol, plus a CG animation clothes all together with my CG background in 3 days. We are facing exactly the same problem. So here I am going to introduce and let you guys know this is impossible. If you guys are looking for a really beautiful show with full creativity, beautiful clothes, model, and CG animation all together, we have to expect at least 1 to 3 months. I think 1 month is already like crazy. I did it in 1 month because I was crazy studying how CG works, and I had a little bit experience with CG as well. So by preparing all of those, you still have to have all the models ready, all the clothes ready, and all the theme, and also all the, I would say like the program and everything ready. So it will require you to have lots of team, like including a CG team, the art directing, and also even the director. So you have all of them, and then you can start to make your dream come true, I would say. Yeah. All my model is shooting in front of the green screen. So you can imagine it's kind of similar to all the Hollywood movie, how they works. But the difficult part is to compose the background, to fit exactly the same as the music, and also the movement of the whole theme. That takes us really, really long time. And I remember I was like really crazy struggling, and I didn't sleep for such a long time for that CG animation. So I think if in the future, as Kerry say, maybe we can have some other option to make it shorter and more smooth, so that the digital world, the virtual life can can be easier for all the brands, all the people, everyone in the world, that might be better. That's like a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that idea of democratizing the technology itself. I always love to use the analogy of the iPhone. It made everybody a photographer, everybody a videographer. You don't even need to know the rules of photography or videography, because the tool itself enables people to be creative. Now, how do we enable technology so everybody can be a fashion designer? Not that they're going to be great fashion designers, but they're able to actually express their creativity. And as we say, curate their own identity in the virtual space.
Kerry, you have an example of a 3D garment to show us, right? Maybe you can look at that now, because you've talked about 3D garments, and we'd love to show our viewers that now. And as you can see, this, talk us through this. Is something you did for Puma?
So this is for Puma. So this is a marketing campaign, and it always starts by creating those what we call digital assets. So the base 3D garment. And as Angel was saying, you know, like here we're talking about environment, we're talking about sandstorm, we're talking about lighting, and then of course the draping and the fitting, and you know, the avatar, the posing, you know, what type of fit model are we using? And we always say the true value of this is we can have a photo shoot in the Atacama Desert in Chile, for instance, or we can have a photo shoot on top of water. We can create these situations that you can't do in our real lives. And that's the real value of 3D. It really enables us to be way more creative and create situations that we haven't previously seen, which allows for this new aesthetic language, a new way of expressing our creativity to create these situations that I think that speaks much more to the younger audiences that are totally digitally savvy right now as well.
And the key benefits is zero waste, because it's all
zero waste. Yeah, I do have to highlight that, you know, we're still using computers, we're still using energy, and we're still storing data. But so we just recently did research with the Imperial College of London, and it comes down to that a t-shirt in the physical world creates about 7 kilograms of CO2, but to make a digital t-shirt creates about 0.25 kilograms of CO2. So that's about 3% of the physical world. So we do still have to take into consideration the energy sources that we use. So it's not completely zero emissions, but it's a fraction of what the physical industry is doing.
Talking about sustainability, Maria, well, I'd love to kind of bring you in, because I know Google has collaborated with WWF Sweden, and to talk about upstream production and making that more sustainable. Can you tell us a bit about that project?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just, Angel, I wanted to give you a shout out. I think taking a step back, the fashion industry is amazing, and to see the resilience and the creativity and the positivity of experimentation, I think for me, having been in the industry now in tech, has been absolutely mind-blowing. So thank everyone for continuing on that creativity and innovation journey. Speaking of innovation, I think, Norman, exactly as you mentioned, sustainability. You know, as creative as the industry is and as amazing as it is, the fashion industry is one of the largest negative environmental impact industries globally, behind oil. It accounts for 20% of all wastewater and 10% of all carbon emissions. Now, while there's many brands and many organizations that are doing wonderful things to combat that negative impact, the majority of it is actually, instead of the consumer facing part, it's actually within the raw material supply chain. So very basically, growing cotton, growing trees to make viscose. And that's where the majority of that negative impact is. Essentially what we're doing with the WWF is we're creating a platform together to help the industry be able to make more responsible sourcing decisions, because currently information and data about, you know, what is the impact of growing organic versus conventional cotton in X state along water pollution, water scarcity, air pollution. Right now, a lot of that data is either not available or it's quite old. So we're using our Google technological capabilities, our geo satellite mapping through the Google Earth Engine, where we have pegabytes and pegabytes of data that we're stitching together to fill in some of those data gaps, to actually see if you grow in X versus Y region, how can you actually minimize the water scarcity issues, or how can you actually take actions to partner with those communities to offset some of the fashion sector's, you know, negative impacts, so that we can make a difference together. To Kerry's point about digital, we recently announced at Google that sustainability has been a core value for us since its founding. We were the first major company to become carbon neutral in 2007. And last week, we eliminated Google's entire carbon legacy in terms of, we set aside all and became carbon neutral since we had that pact in 2017. What I think is amazing is we've made the ambition to be entirely carbon neutral 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year within our third decade. And so I think that, yes, digital absolutely is something that does have an impact, but there's ways to offset it and also ensure that we're all being sustainable. And I think we just did a big deal in terms of renewable energy as well in Singapore that we're really, really proud of in terms of solar power.
Great. Maria, at Google, obviously has a lot of data, a lot of big data. I know you're a fan of big data and helping drive decision-making. There is a assumption that during the pandemic that sustainability was something that people weren't caring about. What does the data show?
Yeah, so so I am definitely a data nerd. I love data. And I think what was really encouraging is, in complete candidacy during the coronavirus, in many people's minds, the first instance was, do I have enough cash flow? Am I able to design my collection, Angel, as you mentioned? What's happening to my stores? But what's been really inspiring is we look at our search data. So literally what you type in your computer to see what search intent is and what's on people's mind. And what's been amazing to see is there was twice the volume of searches for sustainable fashion in July 2020 versus the prior year. People definitely care. We did a big study with a research company, Basis, which came out earlier this week. And it's showing quite clearly that consumers care very deeply about sustainability. And not only do they care, but it's a proxy for brand value, innovation. So companies that communicate, if they're authentically doing it, obviously, communicate their sustainability credentials. From a consumer's point of view, it actually enhances their value of what they view that brand to be. It's increasingly becoming an expectation that brands are responsible and that they take responsible decisions, which I think is really exciting.
Maghan, there's so much data available to brands now. And how much do traditional luxury fashion brands rely on algorithms or data to make, design decisions, or even like decisions on how to target customers, existing customer base? Any insight into that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's actually that AI and data would kill creativity or would somehow obviate designer inspiration, but that's simply not true. What I'm seeing in my reporting is that using AI, using data, it helps make your creativity more powerful. It makes it more efficient. So brands might have more information on when to launch a specific bag or which regions are most likely to be receptive to that design at that time. Because the reality is no one creates in a vacuum, but having access to more data gives you much more scale for inspiration. So it's on the design side for sure, but it's also in the side of what do you release when and which stores. Brands all the way from Gucci to Levi's are using data to inform the right store, the right time, the right customer. And it's already shown that making these connections and algorithms that humans can't make is more successful than just the human intuition alone.
Great. And I've noticed that a lot of brands, Burberry streamed their show on Twitch, LV with League of Legends, Valentino, other brands with Animal Crossing. There's a lot of partnering with gaming platforms or things where there's interaction. Why do you think luxury brands are heading in that direction? Is that where the future of fashion lies, with gaming tie-ups?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the places that the future of fashion lies. I think what's interesting to me about gaming specifically is that there's a lot of interactivity, a lot of participation. So, we saw a lot of fashion shows, digital fashion shows in the beginning of this lockdown, it was more of a TV experience. You're kind of creating the runway experience. You're looking at it on a screen, and it's sort of like one way. And I think what gaming has done really well, and what fashion can learn, is they create the sensation that you're actually there in the experience. Maybe someone who's younger might say, oh, I saw my friend today at this Travis Scott concert. But what they meant was they saw their friend in the game. And so it makes them feel like they're actually there. I watched a concert with Travis Scott on Fortnite. And I didn't watch it live, but I watched it after. And the live version alone got 12.3 million viewers at one time. And what was really interesting to me is that as he was performing, everyone's avatar was jumping up and down. They could show enthusiasm. So there's this collective experience. The crowd, it's kind of recreating or mimicking the enthusiasm of a crowd, which I think is really interesting. And as you mentioned, Burberry was the first luxury brand to stream on Twitch, which is owned by Amazon. It's historically a game streaming platform. So you watch people play video games, but they've expanded now. They even have TV shows where people can, viewers can interact and they can suggest plot twists that happen in real time, which is so fascinating. And I think it returns this idea of interactivity that we lost by stay at home and not being able to go to fashion shows.
Yeah, for sure. What about this whole kind of conversation between data and creativity? Because, you know, we've noticed that brands are now being very consumer centric. It's like, okay, this sells, we need to make more of this. Does that kind of trump the role of the designer? And Angel, as our resident designer here, what do you think about the future of that relationship between looking at the numbers and data and what the consumers want and the role of the designers? Because we still turn to designers, and rightfully so, to kind of give us to give us a zeitgeist of what's new and what's next, and inspire us to dream. What is your take between data and creativity?
Actually, because I also launched my online store, so I receive like lots of data information every day. And especially like Tmall has this, what we call 1,000 people, 1,000 face, is to justify your correct customer. What's their customer profile? They will list out their age and their earning, and lots of information will show you. But I think fashion is really more than that. Data is our information. It's to guide you. More efficiency, more production, and also to guide you how you can set up your like merchandising plan, your production plan, and also the stock plan. This is more to the running business part. However, I think if designer is like really 100% relying on all this technology and data, I think maybe we'll get lost. So what I would suggest and what I hope my team to do is always open-minded to the big data, always have a glance of how does it go, not only in the fashion industry, but also to the global economy industry, because it's always go around. It's always related to your daily life and your lifestyle. Do not only focus on fashion, and to be open-minded from your heart to your eye to the whole world, including the data, technology, and everything.
Maria, working at Google, I'm sure you have an opinion about big data and driving designs, because you worked at Gucci for a decade. What is your take on this?
So I think that data is a tool, and I think this is throughout it. I think that, you know, listen, there's more data in the retail industry than probably any industry, and it's quite confusing for someone who, you know, had run stores before, and designers, I'm sure, as well. It's the insight that matters, and so I think that, you know, designers, you need to allow them to fly. You need people like Angel who dream. Because if not, you don't have the magic of the fashion industry. But at the same time, having those inputs and getting to those inputs to say, well, maybe in this market, this is a specific customer need. It allows you to be responsive. I think creativity should not be dictated by data, but it should absolutely be an input. And I think advances in technology allow us to come together with those insights. And what I've always said to my team is, when you're working with your partners, ask them first, what is your goal? What are you curious about? What do you need to know? So don't lead with the data, lead with the customer insight, lead with the question, and then data can be a tool.
Kerry, you know, I suppose this is all based on the assumption that, you know, as human beings, we still wear clothes and we go out, but, you know, this year has shown that we've been indoors. It's September, almost the end of September, and we've been indoors pretty much the whole year. So the use of clothes for function this year, I suppose, has decreased compared to using clothes on avatars and for gaming platforms for identity. What is your take on that whole data versus creativity?
Yeah, so especially now, virtual lives are, of course, way more prominent than our physical lives, and the way we connect to each other is virtually. Almost 100% of the time, especially during the pandemic, I was working from home, and all of my social interactions was via some type of virtual platform. And for us, of course, data is, can really inform from a business perspective. And I think that's a lot of the things that we've been talking about. But there is that creative angle as well, where something like artificial intelligence, and I'll use the example of what we've done already in 2017, 2018, using AI as a tool to inform us about the next collection that we're going to make. And I do have a video to show. If we can just kind of bring that video up, that would be great. And I'll just talk a little bit over it. So this really comes from Amber, our creative director, who's a digital-only fashion designer and was the first one ever to graduate with a digital-only portfolio from a fashion institute. Now, what she did, she worked together with an AI scientist, and they fed 1,500 images from the Paris Fashion Week into a machine learning algorithm, and they got like this weird pixelated images back. And it was not really defining the exact look of it, but it gave decisions on shape, on color, on silhouette, from where she drew inspiration from. So it's essentially co-creating with the computer to create these type of designs that we're looking at right now. So this was kind of our take on the virtual fashion catwalk already in 2018. That already got us kick-started, and it really came from data or AI. Or the tool itself really inspiring us to kind of create this new language. So we really believe that we're moving towards this space where the virtual identity is becoming so important. And so we had a researcher working from another college talking to us about human behavior. And we asked her, how do we get people to wear digital-only clothing? Or, how do we get that emotional reaction for them to want to wear digital clothing? And she really said something yesterday to me that really resonated. In our physical lives, we are kind of open, we are vulnerable, we are left to our kind of surroundings. We're not in full control of it. But in our virtual lives, we have full control of the way that we want to create, the way we look, the way we behave, the way we talk. It's a filter for us. Of course, there's a lot of things downsides that comes with that. And we're always focusing on how do we create value? How do we enable people to be empowered and engaged and really feel positive in our virtual lives? And I think fashion will play a big role in that, really allowing us to do things that we can't do in our physical lives. And I'll use myself as an example. When I got myself 3D scanned in 2017, it was really an exercise just to put digital clothing on myself. But to see myself, oh, you saw it, okay.
I saw it.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it's still very vulnerable
We're
to me.
dancing.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to get myself 3D scanned, half naked, and I knew I was going to put it out into the world, which is very vulnerable of just knowing, just to be there with like two guys taking photographs of me half naked is already vulnerable. But to know that that 3D scan is going to go out into the world of the internet and to show it to everybody, then to put digital clothing on me. And it actually had a positive effect. I really started looking at myself from a body positive perspective, see all my kind of flaws, like I'm not a supermodel, and to see myself from behind myself and see like, oh, wow, my back is actually kind of weirdly curved. So I started really working on my posture. I put on digital clothing on myself that I would never put on myself in my physical life. So the virtual space is a space where it's really safe to play around, because it doesn't matter, because I can really distance myself and say like, that's not me, even though it looks like me. It doesn't behave like me. In my virtual life, I can do dance moves that I can't do in my physical life. But what I started doing, I actually started taking dance classes last year. I'm still terrible, but I'm getting better. And it's like this kind of, I'm feeling empowered, by my virtual life that's really feeding into my physical life. So I think that's kind of like the space, the virtual identity is going to become more and more prominent, because our lives are not becoming less digital, our lives are becoming more digital. And it's like, how do we use these tools in a way that is actually becomes positive and actually helps us, move forward as humankind? Those are a lot of the questions that we're dealing with.
And you can buy garments, right? Because you can buy digital garments, and then you tell me about it. You were explaining to me that it is an additional revenue stream for luxury brands. If you create a digital wardrobe, that you can sell it on, and you can, there's a great market.
Absolutely. I see these digital assets that we create for brands. I call it a gold mine of information, because it's finally, you have something that's scalable as a business model. So it's not like, you know, you create one garment, you sell one garment, you know, that's not very scalable. To sell more, you need to create more. With digital, you know, you can create one garment and you can utilize it in multiple different channels. Let's use gaming, for instance. That one asset can become used in every single gaming platform with little optimization. So that one asset is driving new revenue streams. And what we've done, because we sold a garment in an auction last year on blockchain that sold for almost $10,000. These, like, blockchain is enabling a lot of these new business models and ownership as well. Because what you can do on the blockchain, you can claim ownership. So if we sell one item for, let's say, $100, we can still have 15% of ownership of that item. So if the next owner sells that garment for $1,000, we get $150 of that item. If the next owner sells it for $10,000, we get $1,500 out of that item. So that's this kind of like new economy that's coming out of it. Is super interesting. So blockchain, okay, let's get rid of blockchain, because I think a lot of people still don't fully understand it as a technology. But just as a tool, like we're giving away free files on our website, and these free files are being downloaded in the thousands, you know, and people are creating content for us for free. So what we started doing, we started taking their content and populating our Instagram channel with their content. This is the idea of user-generated content. Essentially, our users becoming our marketeers. And this is what brands will kind of start seeing. And we have a lot of these collaborations coming where we're creating digital only items with brands that we're actually going to start selling. We can auction them, we can sell them on multiple different channels. Right now, it's very much focused on the 3D creator community, essentially people who know how to use 3D software. But now we need to enable, again, that tool, the same as the smartphone enabled everybody to become a photographer and a videographer. Now we need to enable that interactive platform where people can come in, create a virtual avatar of themselves, put on digital clothing on themselves to create content around their own identity, to become their own stylist, essentially. And that's what we've already tried that with our beta platform. And then Q2 next year is when we're going to have the mass consumer ready platform coming out.
Let us know. I can't wait to create our own avatar. Megan, you're a big fan of consumer-generated content as well. Talking about the future of technology and fashion coming together, what do you see as the big growth drivers? I mean, obviously, e-commerce has taken off a lot this year because everyone's been at home. When can we start scanning our bodies so we can try things on ourselves? That's still a huge pain point, right? I might know my size in Prada or Gucci, but what if it's a new designer from London that I've never tried on before? What are the new technologies out there that will kind of drive this kind of digital e-commerce? Megan, I think we might have dropped out a little bit.
Sorry about that. I think I'm back. I can hear you. I apologize for that.
So to summarize my question, what do you think of the new tech advances that we should be keeping an eye out for that's going to be around the corner for us in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think Kerry touched on it. The 3D digital design, I think, is set to unlock so many of these conversations that we're having. I think that's the first step, is that if these brands are able to create these 3D assets, they can be used essentially across the process of a garment, from design and marketing. And already, like on e-commerce websites, you're often seeing digital designs that aren't even made in real life yet. So I think going back to that sustainability and technology merger, I think 3D design has got to be a priority. Home at midnight, you don't need a fit model. You reduce your waste. You can respond to trends more quickly. You can create advertising before the product is even introduced. You can sell it before it's even made. And then you can even sell a digital version and have consumers dress themselves on Instagram or Snapchat in these digital designs, which is a really interesting approach to sort of fast fashion and the social media age, where you can experiment with new clothes, again, with such little waste, just like Kerry illustrated. So I think that's really interesting. And I think there's going to be this idea of this digital layer on physical things in the immediate term that's through augmented reality. We're already seeing that. And I think brands should be thinking about how can they make their physical goods, their stores, their tags, their experience on social media, how can they make it come alive with augmented reality? And what can they add? What digital layer can they add just using a smartphone camera to give more information to a consumer, to create something that they want to share on social media, to maybe give them a makeup tutorial? I think that is sort of where it's headed. So I think those are the big high level technologies that I think are really set to be influential in the next few years.
I'm glad you mentioned augmented reality. I'm passionate about that. And actually for Vogue Singapore, we have QR codes throughout the book. And here in Singapore, you have to scan a QR code to check in and check out of literally everywhere, including Starbucks and the supermarket. So everyone's very familiar with the QR code here. So hopefully when they see it in the book, they know what to do with it. And one of them is we partnered with HoloMe, which is an augmented reality company. And we have a Singaporean actress, Fiona Sear. So when you scan the QR code, you see her pop up in your room, in the park, wherever you may be, and she's wearing a Valentino sequin top in 3 different ways. Talking about kind of, I know that QR codes is probably more adopted in Asia than in the West. Maria, can you tell us about, in terms of data and what's happening on Google, is there a similarity between what is trending when it comes to fashion-related searches in Asia compared to our Western counterparts?
Sure. So I think, I could talk at length about all the differences, but I think all the different countries are different. Like for instance, on a product page, if you're looking in China, you need to have more detailed research. But I think what's more interesting is to focus on the similarities and some of the trends that we're seeing across markets that essentially the coronavirus pandemic has completely accelerated. So yes, there has been a lot of innovation in Asia overall on AR, on VR, on QR codes, et cetera. But one of the big trends that we're seeing, which is vastly accelerated, which might not be as shiny as some of the 3D printing that we're talking about, but we're seeing a huge growth in terms of online video. So just within the UK, we're seeing an uplift of watch time of like 30%. And I think that allows brands, if you're thinking about the here and now, allows brands to experiment, to tell their story. I think there's lots of more authentic content that's out there. Brands are, if you've listened to No Filter Naomi on YouTube or other channels, you're seeing brands really have a voice. And so I think that is something that's quite similar. I don't think that's something that's going away. And I think it's great because we're getting to hear the stories of brands, which makes you feel an emotional connection. Absolutely. I think the other big trend across markets that we're seeing, which Maghan, you mentioned as well, is the acceleration of e-commerce in a major way. So again, very here and now. Overall, because of lockdown, the penetration of online sales as a percentage of stores was about like 20%. It went up to 30%. And we have Google mobility reports, so we can see, are people actually going back into stores? And it's been slower, which I think is not a surprise across markets. And Enders believes that e-commerce will continue to be a major driver of growth, whether or not we go into lockdown or not. It's something that's fundamentally changed how people shop. I personally, having been in retail, I think shops are really important. I love going into stores, but this is something I would be thinking about very heavily right now. And the last thing, which we didn't mention, which is a bit more, I don't think it's actually futuristic, but visual search, I'm really excited about. Within Google Cloud, we have, instead of searching, let's say, by words, you can search by images. I think that allows people to say whether or not something is counterfeit or not counterfeit. And I think that started being adopted much earlier within Asia, but right now across the board, I think that using visual search to quickly find products, either things that inspire you and you want to find it in a retailer, or if it's something to even help facilitate the resale market by seeing whether or not something's counterfeit or not. I'm really personally excited by that. And so it's the use of data and AI, but in a different way. So I think overall there's just a lot more similarities than there are differences, which is, which I think is great because it gives us a groundwork to work together.
I'm conscious of time, but I really wanted to ask Angel, what do you think is the future of fashion shows? Is it online? Is it offline?
Recently, we've been working on how to put a real show online and through live streaming. But at the same time, we also try how to put a virtual show on the live streaming. So I think in the future, maybe we can combine the two together. Because virtual show cannot replace the fancy, the atmosphere, the real touch, the feeling of the whole real show. But virtual show can reach your audience to a bigger amount and quantity, which is very, very important as well. I think in the future, maybe we can see both virtual and real show and live streaming, and maybe 3D scan and every like cool, this kind of cool thing can add together. We are still trying, and I'm very excited to hear all of the information today, because I feel like I already absorbed a lot more in this 1 hour short meeting. I think future for fashion, for a designer aspect, it's always really, really bright. And I think we should keep dreaming of this kind of technology world, but stay true and stay authentic to your creativity. Never forget about your own creativity. Do not lean too much on data, although data can help us a lot on the decision making and the process as well. But as a designer aspect, I think the most important is what you are designing for and who you are and who you want to design, who you want to be. So yeah, that's all.
You have, I wanted also to show our viewers, you have a beautiful garment that used, it's zero waste, no, it was recyclable material, right? You're showing a garment that was woven. See, like you're showing this to me now on Zoom, and it's beautiful, and I can see there's texture, but I want to touch that, you know? I really want to feel that, and that's something that I'm still missing in a digital thing. Tell us about this garment, Angel.
Yeah, let me quickly show you guys this garment. So actually, this is a very special program we recently do. So originally, we kind of designed a cording embroidery on the water dissolvable fabric. It was original like this. So after wash, it become like this. Oh, sorry. So after wash, it become like this. It's totally like kind of like transparent, and we use a yarn of wool because it's really good for the earth. It's eco-friendly and it's very good fiber. But with this kind of cording embroidery technology, we can design, we can program the shape of the garment exactly fit the way you are, your size and your shape. So which can save like lots of energy and lots of water and lots of oxygen as well, which is really, really cool and conceptual idea. And I was just thinking and like brainstorming while Kerry was talking just now, maybe we can do program with the data for this kind of garment in the future, as not only wool yarn, maybe like also other yarn can also do in this way. If we are thinking, I want to have a t-shirt with this kind of material, but I'm not sure like how much fabric I need to cut. And maybe with this kind of data and technology, we can quickly and easily do the way you want, and it's your design. There's only one. You can even put that on blockchain and sell it. So I can I'm like kind of like link everything together and getting like crazy excited just now by hearing so many information. Cool. Also, another innovation we recently do was is the garment I'm wearing today. This is, yeah, let me quickly show you guys. So this one, it's also very cool fiber. It's 100% recycled polyester from the water bottle in the ocean. Mm-hmm. As everyone knows, there are so many like polluted water bottles in the ocean, and this company is called Bonotto from Italy. They're collecting the bottles and make it into PET fiber and weave together with a really fancy way of the jacquard. Yes. So as many one might know, like sustainability is very important, but lots of consumers are thinking maybe the fiber or maybe the fabric will look very ugly, or it will be very itchy, or maybe will be very expensive. But actually what I want to tell everyone is actually sustainability fiber is not that far away from our daily life. It can be comfortable, and it can be like very acceptable price at the same time, but also can do a bit effort to the earth, to help with the earth. And also this one, I was checking, there's a label. It says it reduces 60% of the water 90% of the energy. So every time when you buy this garment, you will know how much energy you save for the whole earth, which is like really cool thing to know as well.
You look intergalactic and fabulous, and you're saving the planet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also,
you go, Angel.
okay, and also I was asking, if I get this fabric and I buy this garment, can I still do a recycle? And they tell me that yes, you can. So after 10 years, maybe if you don't like this dress, you can take it away and then recycle it. It will become your carpet, like your curtain, this kind of thing. So recycle can be continuing to the rest of your life.
A very fashionable carpet, let me tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some questions from the audience. So I might just get into that in our last 9 minutes or so. We have one from, this is for you, Maghan, from Rahas Hapsari. What do you see as the upcoming trends for fashion advertising?
Cool question. Well, I think, I mean, hopefully a lot of what we talked about today, I think ties into advertising. I think thinking of the camera as your new keyboard, that's what Snapchat says. So thinking about how to, again, activate that digital layer, I think that's really exciting. And I think Kerry was talking about this earlier, but this idea of putting the customer or the shopper in the experience instead of being one way. So maybe in the future we will, and I know this technology exists, and I think pretty soon we will be able to put our own faces when we see ads into the model's clothing, to see ourselves in that experience, which I think is really interesting, and it's more participatory. Already, many brands on e-commerce are letting shoppers pick which model they want to see modeling the clothes, and they are able to digitally dress the models. I think that is really compelling and interesting, and I think that level of personalization will only increase. Let's see, I made a few notes, but I think those are the key ones. And I know we talked about gaming a lot. I think gaming has a lot of opportunity for, taking advantage of these virtual worlds where people can try on a new persona. They can dress in something they would never wear in real life. I think that's a really interesting opportunity to kind of introduce the brand to someone.
Right. Kerry,
can I just add quickly on top of that? Because when we talk about gaming, we're talking about interactive experience, right? You know, game is interactive. A movie is a passive viewing experience. Gaming is an interactive experience. And I think it's really involving the consumer in that creation process. So it doesn't even have to be the creation process, but allowing the consumer to interact with the brand themselves, to personalize or to customize. And that really creates a much deeper connection between the brand and the consumer. And the consumer themselves will actually become the marketeer for the brand. So I think that's kind of like the major shift that we're going to see in the upcoming years.
Fantastic.
Yeah, did you see that TikTok challenge to make yourself look like a Gucci model? I thought that was so cool.
I haven't seen
so
that.
Brilliant. It's a perfect example.
Okay, I have to check that.
Kerry, I've got a question from Zhao Pinho for you. How long will it be until it is possible to purchase digital clothing online or via subscription and have it updated daily in relation to our mood? Basically, every day online.
Well, I would say April 2021. I guess that's when we're aiming to do exactly that. But I honestly, like, I see so many of these experiences popping up left and right. There are already a lot of apps that exist that are kind of trying to emulate that, but we're starting to see, more and more of these interactive experiences within the fashion space, really going towards that idea from a business perspective and from a creative perspective. I know we're not the only one working on it. There's going to be a lot of other brands as well. So I think 2021, especially now because of the pandemic, that whole idea has been accelerating. So already before the end of the year, I would say that there's going to be something within that space popping up. And there's already a few examples, but I think they're kind of a little bit in a gimmicky space right now, but I know they're also trying to work on it to make it something that really excites the mass fashion consumer.
So stay tuned to the Fabricant on Instagram for updates, right?
Absolutely.
Maria, I'm sure there are some people watching that have just started a brand, let's say in the last 2 years. What is your advice to them now when projecting their business forward for the next year or so? What advice would you give them in terms of incorporating technology?
I would say, as we mentioned before, always start with the consumer. Think about who your ideal consumer is. And I would say, similar to what Kerry said, don't focus on the gimmicky, focus what's actually going to connect with the consumer, engage with them, Maghan, as you said, and help facilitate purchases. I think, you know, as frictionless as you can make that purchase and to help people connect with your brand, whether it's through stories or through purchasing, is probably the right thing. So I would say first, have your consumer in mind. Secondly, think about the technological investments you want to or need to make. Think about one consumer, omni-channel. Don't think about different vertical channels. And then test and learn. Test and learn, test and learn, and test and learn. You're going to make mistakes. Everyone is. There's never been a market that's had more volatility than now. Everyone will test and learn, but have the courage to cut your losses, to do things incrementally, because that's the way that you'll be able to navigate the volatility that we're seeing in the market right now. But always think consumer first. Technology is an enabler. It is not the all end all.
On that point, Maghan, we've got another question for you. Tech for tech's sake. You know, our brand's saying, oh my gosh, everyone's talking about technology now. I should therefore just try some new technology. What would you say in response to that?
It's a great question. And I think we hear this word gimmicky a lot. And I think that's a tricky one because you don't know what's going to work until you try it. And I think technology, the industry is known for testing, iterating, making small improvements over time. So it's not perfect the first time you introduce something. And I think that's opposite of the traditional fashion industry, which is introduce something perfect the first time. And there's this really high level of expectation of success. But I think brands are starting to kind of adopt more of a tech mindset where they test something small. They might not make a big splashy marketing moment out of it. They might be testing something before they actually announce that they've been testing it. And I think that's the only way that they can know. It's not necessarily tech for tech's sake, but they might experiment with, you know, Apple Watch shopping, voice shopping. They might experiment with video shopping. And one of those might work. And that's the one that they can push forward on. And the other ones, it wasn't necessarily a gimmick. It was just an experiment that they learned from and moved on.
Yeah, can I just add to that very quickly? From knowing from experience, because we recently launched, or back in April, we launched our beta platform for this experience that we've been talking about. And I was actually going through the archive yesterday, and I found your content, Maghan, because you had created a virtual avatar of yourself with no hair, but wearing digital only clothing. And it was an MVP. And like I said, there was no hair. The 3D experience was not great. But we had 12,000 people going through it, only using our own channel. So with no marketing whatsoever. And 30% of the people actually reposted on Instagram. Hey, look at me in my virtual self. No hair, weird face, kind of body that you couldn't choose from, but wearing digital clothing. And they were just more inspired by the fun side of the experiments. You know, it was something new. It was like, I think it's more important to just throw it out there. But the fashion mindset is so much about, oh no, it needs to be perfect. It really needs to be perfect before we launch anything. And I think we need to go more into this software mindset, which is like, if your first version doesn't suck, if it doesn't make you ashamed of yourself, then you're doing something wrong. So it's just like, trial and error, research and development, and constant user feedback. That's the most important thing. It's user feedback is going to be super important moving forward in the digital transformation.
And you're collecting data along the way, so you get to understand your consumer better as you're doing this as well.
Exactly.
Assumption that also doing tech is expensive, but I mean, it doesn't have to be expensive, right? I mean, I'm opening that to the panelists generally. There are some young tech startups out there that are happy to try something with you.
I would love to hear Maria talking about that, because I don't know how you do things at Google, but I can't imagine it being cheap.
No, I would say we have lots. Actually, I would say there's tons of ways to experiment. And I think, Kerry, based upon what you said, if you're not failing, you're probably not, you're kind of pushing yourself. So 100% endorse that, and very much tech first. At Google, you know, there are some very complicated processes and very complicated technologies that maybe you need to be larger, but there's also lots and lots of solutions, and everything from online video, enabling e-commerce, better use of data. We have lots of open source also with our Google Cloud network that anyone can tap into. You don't need a data scientist. So I would say explore, experiment, And absolutely, as you mentioned before, your phone is an enabler. Phone a long time ago was quite complex. I think there's lots of technology out there already today that's not expensive, open, and the name of the game, I think, is experimentation and learn.
And what a great note to end on, Maria. I'm conscious that it's now 9 o'clock here in Singapore. Our time is up. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Maghan. Thank you, Angel and Maria, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to catching up with you, hopefully in person soon.
Thanks, Norman.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thanks, congrats.
Very much.
Thank you.
And guys, so launching globally today, Vogue Singapore is now live. It's on vogue.sg, our website. And also we have 3 collectible covers. I'm going to show you each 3. So this is Ju Xiaowen, photographed by Greg Harris. We have Nana Komatsu, photographed by Fish Zhang in Tokyo. And we have Singapore's own Dia Prabhakar, photographed by Brian Quinn with CGI animation by Rodolfo Hernandez. So this triptych of all Asian cover stars is now live. You can order it on vogue.sg/subscribe if you're not here in Singapore. And of course, make sure you check out our digital platforms, all live on vogue.sg/studio, which is our launch digital experience, Vogue Studio. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.